Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference Startup Competition presented by Ticketmaster. This year, we have 13 innovative startups competing in 2 different tracks for our competition. Earlier today, we saw Protex win out of 7 startups that competed in the performance devices track. Now we are excited to kick off the technology services track competition, featuring technology-enabled sports services that utilize various tools, including predictive analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. As a reminder, all participants have their exhibit set up across the floor, so please go to these companies and demo their products when you get a chance to. Now, as a reminder to our audience, in order to participate, each startup needed to meet the following requirements. Have been founded no earlier than January 1st, 2013, have not raised over $15 million as to date of application, have participated in no more than 1 prior MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference startup competition. Now, as far as the rules, each startup has 5 minutes to present their business and how their company is revolutionizing the sports analytics industry. After each presentation, our panel of distinguished judges will have 3 minutes to ask questions of the startup representatives. In order to assist presenters with the presentation time, I will display a cue card when their 1 minute mark is remaining. As far as the judging criteria, the startups will be graded based on the following criteria: value proposition, an innovation, service, or feature that makes a product or company valuable to the market; product market fit, viable product that addresses and solves a problem or need; industry impact, market potential of the innovation or measure of disruption; go-to-market strategy, a plan to reach customers; business model or strategy, how the company will create, deliver, and capture economic value; the pitch, a compelling overview of the product or company; and finally, team, capabilities, expertise of the company leadership. Now, I would like to introduce our competition judges. With us today, we have Catherine Kai-Ling Frederick. Catherine Kai-Ling Frederick is a SVP at Ticketmaster, which is our sponsor, leading fan marketing and analytics. Under her executive leadership, Catherine has evolved the marketing and product organization to enrich the fan engagement experience with best-in-class technology platforms and product insights. She is also an advisor and investor in a number of early-stage consumer technology companies. Leslie Geddes, founder of Blue Sky Media NYC, a sports media and technology consulting firm, helping early-stage companies with all aspects of their digital strategy, including disruption of content, development of revenue opportunities, advertising and sponsorship, sales, and fundraising. Leslie's resume includes 12 years at the NHL and 4 years at Major League Baseball Advanced Media in senior business roles. And lastly, Tiffany Morris. Tiffany Morris Palazzo is General Counsel and VP of Global Private at Lotame, a venture-backed provider of MarTech solutions and the world's largest independent data management platform. Tiffany oversees all aspects of Lotame's global legal strategy and operations and is viewed as a thought leader in the MarTech space, writing frequently about the privacy ramifications of emerging technologies. Now, let's get to the fun part. I'd like to invite the first startup to the stage, Fancher, if you can please come.
First of all, sorry to be the first one to follow President Obama's conversation. So my name is Vijay Shrava. I'm the founder and CEO of Fansure. So we're using sports data to solve a problem that we're using data to solve a problem that sports fans have every time they go to a game. So I want to go back to a game that happened in December of 2016 between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis, Tennessee. And I want to tell you about a couple fans who were at that game. Cannon was celebrating his 18th birthday, and his parents bought him $600 tickets to the lower bowl section to see his favorite player, LeBron James. Jackson Braden came all the way from Harrisburg, Arkansas, which is about 60 miles from the FedEx Forum Arena. Unfortunately for these three young fans, as well as the rest of the arena, LeBron James ended up not playing in this game. And that's why Cannon's holding up a sign that says, "LeBron, thanks for ruining my Christmas." So obviously this is something that's frustrating for a lot of fans, the fact that they could spend so much money and often travel long distances to go to a game only to see their favorite player either on the bench or not even show up to the arena. So this is a problem that's been happening over the last few years, most notably when the San Antonio Spurs started employing the tactic of resting their players to protect his players from injuries and to get them through the long grind of the regular season. So you're seeing that commonly used today with players like LeBron James and Steph Curry and many of the top players. So unfortunately for the fan, there's no recourse for them when that happens. Rest is one issue, injury is another as well. Oftentimes fans buy a ticket. Unfortunately, a player gets hurt and they end up not being able to see them at the game. So you see the long list of great players who've been injured this year. And Spotrac actually projects a 31% increase in injuries for this year. The NBA, I think, did a phenomenal job tweaking the schedule to make sure games are spaced out enough and there's less back-to-backs and 4-game and 5-night stretches. But injuries are kind of, it's just a bad luck type thing. So when you consider that and the fact that 17 players did not miss any games last year, it's kind of concerning for a fan. So this is where we come in. We are Fansure. We're offering ticket protection for fans in between the time that they buy a ticket and when they go to a game. So they're able to come to us, tell us what player they want to Fansure, as we call it. And if that player ends up not going to the game, they get a 50% refund directly from us. So here's kind of what it looks like. This particular fan wants to go see LeBron James, protect him from rest and injury scenarios. He paid $100 for his original ticket. So our quote to him in this case was $9.81. So $9.81 in exchange for the reassurance that he's going to play, or he gets $50, which is 50% of his original ticket price back. So here's a snapshot of the market. Obviously, star players draw larger crowds, so this is just a snippet of 4 of the top players of the NBA. Considering the NBA breaks records every year in attendance, and when we did our customer development process, 7 out of every 10 people we've interviewed say that they are hoping to see a particular star player at a game. So when you do the math, it's about a $250 million market. So that's just for the NBA. We think we can apply this concept to other leagues as well, both team and individual sports where injuries are common. We can even look outside of sports at concerts where sometimes artists don't perform for a length of time satisfactory to the fans. So that would ramp up our addressable market size. So what makes us tick and kind of unique is that we're the first ones to do this. There's all kinds of ticket insurances out there, but none of them protect you from in-game experience, things like that happening. We make this possible with a dynamic algorithm we developed to price each game, and each player is different from each other, and each game is different in terms of the pricing. And so that data, I think, would be really key for people who are interested on rest and injury patterns that we've been tracking, especially as we grow. So we're pretty new. We're only a couple of months old, so we've been kind of measuring our initial market response. It's been really positive, and we're getting a really healthy click rate on our ads, about 4%. So this is our team. We have a really great team and a really great board of advisors. Our team, the 3 folks on the left, we cover project management, business development, banking, finance, and even rocket science for good measure, so we can talk data. So here's our path to market. Our first option would be to traditionally raise funds for brand awareness, and the other, which is most important, I think, is to partner with a ticket distributor who can integrate us with their ticket platform and really make the awareness go through. So I'm out of time, but this is our long-range plan, and it really will open up our growth and exit options once we achieve that path to market. So with that, I want to thank MIT Sloan for inviting us to participate today, and I'll take any questions.
Question. Great job, and you didn't realize you had some built-in sales right here with my co-judge being from Ticketmaster. So my question for you is that you said that there's a lot of ticketing insurance already out there. So if you buy a ticket, you're insured. You have, like, if you're sick, you can you can get it. Okay. So have you thought about partnering with some of those insurance companies? Because it seems to me that that would be a nice add-on for your product.
I have considered that. I think that they have partnerships with folks like Ticketmaster and stuff already. So I thought that a first logical step in terms of not pulling the cart before the horse would be to get on ticket platform directly first, because I think that would really, I think our limitation in terms of going to market is actually just the awareness and the distribution. So, I mean, that's a good idea.
So having some inside knowledge on the ticketing industry. Yeah. So there are a whole plethora of ticket insurances available today. And many, many startups that come to us with similar intentions. That who do you consider to be in your direct competitive set? Because we've seen a lot of these pitches before, so it'd be very interesting to see who you consider yourselves going up against.
Right. So I don't know if you've heard from any in-game experience type insurance companies.
We have.
You have? Okay. So
not necessarily for specific players, but for blowout insurance and for, you know, didn't meet my expectations. Those kinds of.
So we actually talked to one ticket vendor who kind of does the same thing, except they're their own ticket marketplace, and that company's GameHedge. They give 50% refunds in blowout games. So I would consider them the closest, but yeah.
So it seems, you know, it's essentially an insurance policy, and I guess my question is around kind of what are the data inputs you're using, and then aren't you at an information disadvantage given that there's some strategy, of course, on the sports side of when you bench players, and it may not necessarily correlate to injury?
I wouldn't say we're at a disadvantage because so much of that data is publicly available, and there's companies like SpoTrack that track injuries and things like that. So I think we've been able to make do with what we have. Our real limitation in terms of getting data that we want is I really want to measure like kind of a delta in terms of prices before and after fans know if a player is going to play or not. And it's hard to do that without being on a ticket marketplace. So that's one other reason why that was one of our key go-to-market strategy options.
I just have another question about the business plan.
Sure.
So say it's a really important game, and then LeBron doesn't play, and people spent thousands of dollars on StubHub for their tickets. So how are you insuring? Or I'm sorry, on the Ticketmaster verified resale marketplace. Sorry. How are you insuring against that risk and that loss?
So I think our algorithm takes into account, it is a risk assessment. So the likelihood of LeBron sitting out that game would be proportional with whatever the premium would be. And so, of course, it's a risk, but we've run a number of models showing that over time, we're not going to be like in an underwater situation unless something like crazy happens, like someone buys like 6 courtside seats. And actually, somebody asked me today, what if a player fansures himself and then sits out of the game? Like something like that. It would kind of defeat the math there. But other than that, I think we're pretty confident in
There's no secondary insurance for that type of risk? I mean, like from Allianz or separate insurance that you could buy to insure against that risk? Like when Major League Baseball has, you know, $1 million, you know, fantasy game, they buy insurance just in case somebody wins. So
secondary to us?
Yes. To hedge your risk.
To hedge my risk? That's not something I'm opposed to setting up, but not right now. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Next up is FanWide.
Hi, I'm Simon. Oh, let's get this up. All right. Hi, Simon Perriman, president and founder of FanWide.
Like watching your favorite team, but hate it when you're the only fan around? Traveling, new to the area, can't find your team on TV? FanWide shows you where to watch your favorite team with other local fans. Visit fanwide.com or download the app today.
So FanWide is a social network and data platform for sports fans. We build fan clubs, and we have a large network that allows us to connect fans from any team in any city. Our goal is to identify the top fans, bring them together through a community. We've created the world's largest fan club database, and we engage those fans through in-person events, usually watch parties. We offer incentives to collect data from them that allows us to track out-of-home TV viewership. Essentially, we're trying to create a virtual stadium, giving the most passionate fans out there an opportunity to engage like they would at the stadium if they happen to live in the market. Now, our whole goal has been to automate everything. This has allowed us to have massive scale, where we've promoted over 425,000 events in the past 18 months, 10,000 locations for 11,000 fan clubs. We've tracked about 1 million fans, watching about 5 million games in our first year. Now, we support every professional team, every D1 college team, most international sports, and then a lot of individual and team sports as well, including esports. And our platform's highly scalable, so it's easy for us to add something new. Now, our business model is targeting out-of-market sports fans, the tens of millions of work transplants, students, military, people that are traveling for business or for leisure. And we segment those between the professional teams and the college teams and provide them with a variety of services. Everything is free for our fans. We make our money on the B2B side by selling directly to the teams, to sports bars, to brands, and to event listing sites. And then we have reseller opportunities for anybody else that wants to connect with the most passionate fans. So the first thing that our network did was help sports fans find the local meetup. Bars and restaurants pay us to feature their events, and event aggregators pay us to go and publish our events on their local data feed so that there's more local events in the city. We then develop new communities. We integrate with Facebook, with Twitter, with Meetup.com, so we use those as funnels back to our platform. And we make our money from the bars and restaurants that pay us when we create these new communities. We've developed our own proprietary auction system that's like eBay for events, so bars and restaurants can bid against each other to actually claim a new fan club and bring in new customers. We continue to grow the network with our in-person events. We have automated digital marketing platform. And we make money also from teams that pay us to develop these new communities. This is particularly popular with the international teams, working with some names like Real Madrid, Big Three Basketball League. And then brands also pay us to sponsor our events as well. We provide digital event tools to allow these fan clubs to manage their events so they can communicate before, during, and afterwards. They can collect donations through the app. They can track and report attendance. They could do contests, other types of mini games. And all of our services can be white-labeled and plugged into third-party applications. We want to reward the fans for engaging, so we try to provide them with a discount from the bar or the restaurant when they check in. This allows us to collect data from them. We also work with sponsors that send street teams to our events so they can do in-person activation, again, targeting these most passionate sports fans that are outside of the local area where the stadium's at. They get an email address, the sport fan gets a discount, so it's a great marketplace, giving everybody something back. Now, with all this data that we collect and analyze, we present it, we keep track of it, and most importantly, we're now tracking out-of-home TV viewership. One of the biggest trends in the industry are fewer people are watching TV at home. Cable numbers are down, but we figured out a way to go and do what Nielsen's doing, but better, because we know not only where they're watching, we know what they're watching and how many people there are as well. So this is how we're now tracking and selling this data. Our leadership team is probably one of our strongest assets. I'm a technical founder. I spent 8 years at Microsoft. I have about a dozen patents. I went to Duke as an undergrad along with Jeff and TJ. Jeff's a practicing attorney. TJ runs our engineering team. He's a manager from Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Oracle. Got an MBA. Dr. Phil Garland's a Stanford PhD in data science, and we have 2 new PhDs starting on our team next week. And Joe Ruiz runs our product, and we have multiple bilingual speakers, which is important for sports. We've won a variety of media and awards, being recognized in many of the top publications around the country, and got endorsements from some top athletes. Finally, we are raising capital. We've raised about $550,000 in our Series A round. We have an outstanding commitment for another $1.6 million, making us oversubscribed. I've personally put in over $250,000. And so if you guys are interested in investing in FanWide, we're accepting units of $25,000 per unit. We'd love for you to join the FanWide team. Thank you.
Hi, great job.
Thank you.
That's a lot of information. For all the data that you're collecting, that's incredible data that would be very valuable to a lot of third parties. Where are you getting that data? Where is it being collected from?
So the way we actually do our data is we want to provide fans with an incentive to check in. What we found is if we can get the bar or restaurant to work with us and give a deal, about 95% of people will check in to get their dollar off beer. When they check in, we ask them one simple question: how many other people are watching the game with you? So we're basically crowdsourcing and aggregating that information. Now, if we're not working with the local bar and restaurant, because we still promote every event, we then look to our sponsors to also provide incentives. We're working with some large organizations right now, like Red Bull, Anheuser-Busch, and they provide deals as well. So the fan gets something, they provide the data, we collect and aggregate it.
Are you working with the fan clubs, with the actual team fan clubs?
Yes, we are working with fan clubs all around the country. We've got 11,000 in the network, and we're working with probably 2,000 or 3,000 of those 11,000 directly. And the rest, we're continuing to grow as we build up the network.
What do you see as the willingness to pay from the B2B side?
From the which side, I'm sorry?
From the businesses.
Sure. So what we found is bars and restaurants, they tend to be a little thrifty, right? They're not wanting to spend as much money to actually host the event. So that's why we allow them to bid against each other in the auction system. They get to kind of self-price what the value is to them. We then make money from the sponsors as well that want to sponsor the event, get that access to those top fans. Because keep in mind, right, these are the fans that are the most passionate and loyal fans. They would be at the stadium every week if they lived in the area. They're just out of that area. So they're still extremely valuable to the brands. And then long-term, the data.
So you bring up the fans. When your fans are experiencing these events, and do you see a lot of repeat discovery?
We do. We always want to provide an incentive for a fan to check in. If they get a free beer every time, they always do it. So it's still about providing the right incentives, right motivation to get them to check in each time. But yes, we have a high return rate, absolutely.
So on revenue, you mentioned multiple kind of potential sources of revenue. So 2 questions there. Mm-hmm. One is, are you earning money? And if so, can you share where you are? And then secondly, kind of what do you see as your top 3 drivers of revenue?
Absolutely. So yes, we are making money. We're making about $1,000 per league per month in each city. So that projects to about $200,000 for an average size city. We're currently available in several cities across the US. So let me take a step back. We are available nationwide where we're promoting events, but for us to create the new fan clubs, that does take time investment. So we're only creating fan clubs right now in New York, Chicago, Seattle, where we're based, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Once we close the round, we're going to go and expand into another 5 cities. With our $200,000 per city projection, that puts us roughly at $2 million for the year. And as we continue to scale up, we get more and more fans, we automatically create more events. As soon as we have 100 fans in a city, we will immediately email all of the bars and say we have a new fan club. They bid against each other. As more and more fans get in an area, and we go from 100 fans in a county down to 100 fans in a city or a postal code, we add more and more hosts. So all of that's fully automated, from identifying these fans, getting a bar to bid, getting them to pay us, and getting the fans to the event. That's how we've been able to hit such high scale.
So is the primary revenue stream is the revenue from the venues as of now?
Yes, right now primary revenue is from the venues. We've recently started doing the sponsorship, and then the third longer term one will be from the data that we're collecting, reselling to the TV, broadcasters, advertisers, the people that want to have these additional millions of eyeballs watching the games.
Thank you, FanWide.
Thank you.
Next up is logo base.
Hello, my name is Eric Schmitter. I'm the founder of Logobase. Logobase is intended to be the singular repository of all sports licensed logos and graphics. And by codifying these, we build the foundation for all sports licensed companies who are making product to exploit burgeoning new technologies that they can't take advantage of and to close the art design data loop. I got my start at Reebok's sports license division when they first got the NFL license. Kind of overwhelming. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of files that designers and artists and production artists and collateral people and salespeople have to make every single day. I automated things. I brought in workflow improvements. I relaxed. After that moment, I had a eureka moment, and I thought, oh my goodness, there are other companies who put logos on shirts, logos on cups. So I started my own company. 3 years and $350,000 earned income later, I realized that custom solutions for companies like this, dealing with the volume that they have to deal with, is not scalable. I stepped back, and I called upon all of the friends that I have, and I built an incredible team of collaborators, each person with more than 20 years' experience in the sports license industry, with the exception of Mr. David Zotter, who is the CTO at SSI and has over 20 years of data analytics. So what is the weight of a logo? And by the way, please come by our booth because I have 100 pounds of brass blocks that ask that question. A logo is a piece of art, and it has no value until we imbue it with value. And, as I said, we have no way to close this loop with data and art. Designers are making decisions irrespective of data. This is what it's like getting a license. It's awesome. However, the work is overwhelming. There are redundancies and very archaic ways of passing the logos to the licensees. When you do a shirt, you have to break that shirt out into 30 teams. This is done manually. It takes an average of 3 hours. Each design, each of the 30, has 4 related art files, also done manually. One of our clients makes an average of 55,000 SKUs every season, and they only get a 35% return. Reebok, in its heyday, was making 1 million art files, all of this made manually. And of course, there's a concomitant scaling up. So meet Logobase. If you codify your logos and you build a foundation to start collecting data to inform the product, you don't have to make 55,000 to sell 35%. You can exploit artificial intelligence. You can really capitalize on automation. And let's talk about technology. Blockchain, it's coming. The robots are coming, and we're not exploiting it. Now, we have some ideas for Logobase, some sidechain things, but we don't have time for that right now. You can ask me afterwards. We're in a market where there are other data asset management companies. However, nobody is providing automation at the design and production level. Also, nobody has the experience that we have on the ground creating actual product. However, we don't see these people as competition, more as complementary. When you build a foundation like Logobase and you can accumulate data, it benefits everybody in the industry. Everyone can glean valuable data. But of course, the licensee is the biggest beneficiary because they can streamline their work and they can automate their work and they collect data that will inform them. The head of one of the design departments at one of our clients said if he had information about what choices the designers are making, it would be a game changer. The licensing market is pretty big. The sports licensing market, pretty big. However, it has reached a level of scalability, of bumping into scale because its workflow constrains its growth. Constantly, they're ramping up. We're going to partner with the leagues and exchange data for logos. And we have 3 very committed companies in various stages of their workflow who are anxious to be the beta testers of our product. We're following a SaaS model. We're looking for a $400,000 investment. In 4 months, we'll have the MVP. So I ask you again, what is the weight of a logo? These things are pieces of art that have no meaning or value until we imbue them with value because of the actions of athletes and teams and the fans. And then we collect this data, we inform the art, we don't waste resources, and we step back and we can pursue the rest of the licensing market and the rest of anyone who's making a logo for product. Thank you.
So interesting presentation, and I guess the question I have is, can you articulate exactly the business problem you're trying to solve? I'm not super familiar with your space.
It's this. Working at Reebok is really this. Working at 47 brand, working at Nike, working at all of these companies, because nobody invests in infrastructure before they get a license. It costs a lot to get a license, and the market is concentrating. We have Fanatics that's becoming the master. And so when you get a license, then you say, oh, now we need to ramp up. And it's the learning curve is steep, and the need to build resources is really steep and very expensive. Logo updates are sent by email, and there are perpetual redundancies, and there are no real-time updates of the assets. And there is, again, no data collection.
So in the spirit of what Obama said, I'm going to ask I don't really get it. So is it a workflow product? Is it a database? Is it?
It is all of these things. So number one, when designers are creating product, you do a T-shirt in one team. The designer has to make the choices of what that T-shirt will look like. But they're doing hundreds of styles a season. So all these designers are picking logos, and there's no rhyme or reason why they're picking them. They have personal biases, but that data, there is no data collection at the development process. The only data collection that happens relative to logos and the colors and the teams is in the sales market. These companies have no way of knowing, they can't have a profit and loss statement per style. They're making millions of files, but their method of dealing with it is to create millions and millions just in the hopes that they cover their margins, which are shrinking. That's the data aspect. Then, by virtue of organizing these things and codifying each logo, which is basically a piece of hypermedia, you can collect all the data. And you can then say to everyone else who's participating in this competition, you can leverage the organization of these logos.
So from a business partnership perspective, do you have to get a license from each of the leagues or each of the owners of the intellectual property?
We do not. The consulting that we've been doing for the past number of years, we have access to the assets. The leagues give it to the licensees. We take them and we build automation tools. So we have permission to use those, but not to go off necessarily and sell them to other people. However, I've been in touch with all of the college conglomerators, and they all, it's a ship that they don't want to really turn. They're happy with their processes. However, when I say, what if I give you data? They say, oh, yeah, we would like data. So that's the exchange.
And then just to clarify, so with the 55,000 SKUs, so your solution, there's a 35% buy-in, so then that particular licensee would only really have to create 35% of 55,000 SKUs? With your process, they would have the data where they would know what's selling and what's not?
They would have the data to narrow their product offerings so that they're not wasting effort building basically very simple designs because they don't have the bandwidth to actually step out and be creative.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to take a few minutes break to tackle a technical difficulty. A few minutes and we'll be back. So we're good to go. Let's hear it now from players' vote.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry for the delay, but hopefully we'll get it going now. So our project is called Players Vote. My name is Alex, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Players Vote. We try to make sports experiential and social by reinventing the role of the second screen. As you guys might know, social conversations in sports are changing right now, especially when it comes to fan engagement. Challenges are everywhere. So many of the conversations out there is a lot of blah blah, and there are too many choices, especially when we talk about live games. And the most important part is that fans cannot voice their opinion. More importantly, distribution channels are changing. So you guys know web apps, you guys know mobile apps, but around 1.5 years ago, bots basically came up, and this was the focus that we put on and tried to get like our use case that was normally within our prototype in a mobile app. We tried to put it into a chatbot. I'm sure you also know that guy, so Mark Zuckerberg. This was one of his most famous statements when it comes to social networking and messaging. And he basically said that messaging is one of the few things that people do more often than social networking. So it's basically said that chatbots are the new apps, and global bot trends basically are drawing that picture. There is an increasing app tiredness in the market. 88% of people use only 5 apps on a regular basis. 25% of the apps are used only once and then deleted. But on the other hand, 3 billion people use messengers daily. So Facebook Messenger, Viber, Telegram, Kik, or WeChat. And in fact, 7 times per day. And this is where we try to get our product placed. So what is Players Vote all about? So we want to give fans a voice with performance ratings. How does it work? You as a fan, you predict pre-game, you vote during the game, and after the game, so post-game, you get scored. What's our value proposition? Due to the fact that all those mechanics are directly put into Messenger, you do not need to download any app, so it's readily available 24/7. We can open up a completely new, relevant communication channel for our targets. So we target primarily business to business, meaning organization, leagues, teams, but also media outlets. We saw a super high user engagement rate over the couple of projects that we did with reference clients, and it's a gamified approach. The industry impact will be huge. So it's all about data, 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 because we're going to get fan-generated data over the entire fan journey. So new data pre-game, new data during the game, and also new data post-game. Fan-based segments, so we're going to tackle the die-hard fans, season ticket holders, but then due to the fact that the communication channel is very young, we also focus on millennials and youth. Go-to-market approach, so we are focusing on team sports first, football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer, and cricket. But then with the mechanics, we can also serve e-sport pretty well, which is I think, huge opportunity. We did 2 projects. One was with Rakuten Viber and Barcelona. So we tried to get those kind of fan engagement metrics and levers going with Barcelona. As mentioned, over the entire fan journey, some pre-game actions, live and post-game actions. And we also did a project for Sky Sport, but this was on Facebook Messenger. Same here, entire fan journey, pre-game, live, and post-game. Last but not least, what is our business model? So it's basically a SaaS business or BaaS business, bought as a service with a setup fee and then with monthly subscription based on how deep the client wants to dig into the data. Last but not least, the team. So we got a couple of serial entrepreneurs on the team and also a good lead investor and a couple of ex-Google and Google guys as advisors. So I think that's it. I'm right in time, so I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you, appreciate it.
What kind of data do you think that licensees of your platform are most interested in?
So we saw two sets of data. So first of all, it's all relevant data, because the data that is being generated and being used by organizations is fan data that basically right now is not available, where you can basically see how they predicted a result, or who was the hottest player, where you felt like this could be potentially the best player during the game, MVP, stuff like this. So this was the first kind of data that we saw, but more importantly, all the data that is being generated throughout the live game. So we can take instant data feeds throughout the game and really then link that kind of fan-generated data back to the data that is already out there being generated and supported by Sportradar, Opta Sports, et cetera, et cetera.
How do you see this being complementary or competitive to the data that sports betting platforms can provide back?
So I think that's a great question in regards to sports betting data. I think they can basically feed back the data that is being generated pre-game, like prediction results and stuff like this, because this is what people bet on. But especially when it comes to the live game, I think this is where we are unique, because there is no supplier right now out there that is really giving fans a voice, meaning like that they can rate performances on a scale from 1 to 6, 6 meaning outstanding performance, 1 meaning poor performance. So I think this is where we can really excel at.
I think that the fan sort of enthusiasm as it goes up and down during a game, that type of data could be very interesting as a feed, as a licensed feed. So I think that part's very interesting. As far as the chatbot and the second screen experience, where do you see this second screen chatbot experience taking place? Within Facebook Messenger or Slack? Or where is the chatbot popping up? So
right now we did 2 projects on 2 platforms that we wanted to test out, especially in regards to retention rates. So this was clearly Facebook Messenger, and please do note that every single brand, sports brand that is out there, they got a huge presence on Facebook. So I think that makes sense. The second project we did with Viva and Barcelona was on the Viva platform. But I think, especially when we talk about Slack, going into organizations where they do, especially when big games are coming up or big tourneys like the World Cup, they want to predict and do some gamified experiences with their peers and friends. So I think that Slack is also something we want to look into pretty fast. And last but not least, and I think this is also, for us at least, it's clear where the journey might be going. It's all about conversational interfaces, meaning Alexa, et cetera, because why not being back home in the couch and not like using a chatbot, but talking with Alexa and really, voicing your opinion.
Do you have any concerns, given that the chatbot needs to sit within a Messenger app, about ownership of data and the ability to monetize that data long term?
So we have been talking with teams and leagues in Europe, but due to a previous project, we also got a very vast network here in the US. And when we basically lead potential clients through the use case, they are pretty amazed what can be done within Messenger, especially when it comes to the experience, because you can really like push direct messages directly to the user. And I think here it's about making smart notifications. So it's not about spamming users. I think it's about giving them the option to subscribe what kind of data or feeds, because they can also refactor their existing content that is being put out there on the website, et cetera, and get it basically fed back into the messenger. So I think the feedback that we saw was very good, and we hadn't had those kind of conversations in regards to data issues, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, players.
Thanks.
Up next, we have Timecode Archive.
Thank you for the introduction. It is such a great honor to be on the stage today. My name is Spike, and I'm with the JD Im, who is a co-founder and CEO of the Timecode Archive. Our mission is to build the world's largest timecode archive in the world, which will be the foundation of our product narrative graph. Yeah. So what is the problem? Actually, longer communication is always difficult and challenging. So is presentation too. So I'm very happy that my presentation is only limited to 5 minutes today. So for example, it's even worse and more challenging for the AI speaker. If the AI speaker wants to have a prolonged conversation with a deep engagement with the users, it's really, really hard. So in a recent quote from the Alexa, a VP of the Amazon, he said that Alexa should be capable of holding conversation up to 20 minutes long. But we all know that it's very challenging. So it's hardly ever imagined that we can make the users engaged within more than 10 minutes without a story. So no story, no engagement. But thankfully, the sport is full of superhero stories that inspire us and touch our emotion, make us believe in the impossible, and connect like-minded. You may have seen the Jerry Maguire movie. It's a Kwan. Kwan is the entire package of love, respect, and community, and everything that makes fans excited. So how can you build a story? How can you embed? How can you convert the story into metadata? We'd like to have a metadata business. So we build a narrative graph. It's a storytelling metadata to enable 20-minute content consumption in next future devices, such as AI speaker, AR, VR headset, and social networking services. So here's the solution. So we have 2 steps and 3 phases to build a narrative graph, which is full of storytelling metadata. First, we start from the Wikipedia and Reddit. You may have a full textful data from the Wikipedia. We use the natural language processing to extract the sentence, which contains the time information. And of course, that sentence includes entities like a player or rival teams, and also events. They had a game or someone lost, something like that. And also, they have a relationship. So we extract those kind of events, entities, relationship with the time information. And then, at the next phase, we enrich individual time code with the relevant media link, such as YouTube, tweets, blogs, Bleacher Report articles, something like that. Now we can call it's a structured data, which is consumable and which is computable by the device, not the human. And then individual time code, we apply the relevance and prominence indexing to figure out which time code is the most appealing to users, which is most popular story to audience. That's what we call finite, and ultimately we can say that serviceable data. So here's the example. We'd like to give a usage case scenario that how our data, metadata, empowers AI speakers such as Alexa or HomePod or Google Home to achieve the longer conversation and deeper user engagement. So always the conversation is, we believe, that cyclic process between two actors. In this example, two actors are AI and human. So to fuel the cyclic process, we claim that there are 4 very, very important necessary components. One is right answers, relevant topics, proactive cues, and visual response. Let me take a look example. So right answers. I asked AI, what's the game yesterday, the Golden State Warriors? And AI says, oh, Warriors won over Suns, 129-83. That's a fact. It's easily done by the current AI speaker. Then we brought up the relevant story. So you know what? Steve Kerr yesterday handed over the coaching duties to players, which is pretty interesting. And then we one step into the story, saying that, by the way, do you want to know that what Iguodala reacted Steve Kerr's idea? Lastly, there are so many things we cannot deliver by verbal communication between the machines and humans. So we brought into the visual response, which is composed by our metadata, like what you see on the screen. So that infographic can be computed automatically based on our metadata. So that response will be beamed onto your smartphone and TV to prolong the conversation and further engagement. So our business model is a storytelling as a service. We believe that our value creation, value proposition is storytelling, which differs us from the traditional metadata, which is only full of numerical data. We add the story into metadata form. And then we put that solution right into the market, where all the AI devices and HR and AR, new future devices, really hunger for the data, try to prolong their user engagement. So we have 2 steps. One is we try to validate our traction in the AI speaker and also chatbot. And then after that, we try to move on to the B2B business. And even though we are pre-funding and pre-revenue stage, but we are a team with the right skill and right technology understanding with the big aim. So JD and I worked in the Silicon Valley for 10 years for Nokia and Microsoft, and then we built a big data automation pipeline with the AI speaker interface and also data mining skill. And thank you for your attention, and then I'm more than happy to take any question, and also may the Kwan be with you. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. So have you done any testing with live games? Because you said that you're pulling a lot of the data from Wikipedia and Reddit. So have you done testing with live games and actually integration into one of these AI speakers?
Actually, our prototype actually started not from the start, but also on the music. So we integrated all the different data feeds and then make a knowledge-based graph. And also on top of that, we try to extract the story. That's our current prototype, and we are moving on to the sports. Our implementation based on the Wikipedia and Reddit, using their own public API. We plan to integrate the basketball reference data, which is on time updated, so that we can integrate all the different knowledges and different data feeds, and then extract the full set of time codes. Then individual time code will be enriched with Twitters and Bleacher Report and also blogs.
So is the output mainly visual data, or is it audio? Audio storytelling?
Output data is the metadata. So for team, for players, and for rivalry, relationship, all those kind of data will be in form of the metadata, like the IMDb for a movie. But the presentation-wise, it could be a visual, it could be a verbal. Previously, the Wikipedia is textful data, we cannot imagine that the AR and VR devices will show the full textful data. So we try to chunk and make it the chunkable and consumable chunks. Yeah, that's what we call timecode. Yeah.
How do you manage for content integrity, governance, content owners wanting to be able to influence the accuracy, given that you're taking largely user-generated content that is loosely governed right now?
Yeah, that's a very big concern, actually. Compared to the traditional metadata, which only contains the facts, but our data is more likely moving from the facts toward how the user interprets and how the audience actually felt on the game. So it's more like sometimes it could be based on the fake news. So one of our close collaborator, Carnegie Mellon and MIT alumni, she's working on to figure out which data is from fake news. So we will try to work with her to bring that technology in to figure out what data sources we should drop out and what data we should keep.
Right. I mean, having quite a bit of experience on the music side of the business, which is where you said you started, that is a highly contentious area, particularly for artists and content owners when it comes to that sort of content governance. So it becomes potentially introduces risk to your business model. So how do you think you would address that, given that you're still regulating whether or not something has the propensity to be fake or real, rather than working directly with those
On
artists?
our current stage is to integrate as many data feeds as possible and try to extract the story. But at the next phase, we are very, very interested to actually figure out which time code, which story is controversial, which time code and which story are privacy invasive, and which time code and story is more appealing. So we try to classify individual time code and story by machine learning and also some data available. So, but that's a very, very big our interest.
Are there language limitations to your technology? Like, are you, is it based around English language inputs, and does that put any limitations on the growth of the business?
That's a very good question. We just focus on only the English right now, English contents, and also Wikipedia and Reddit. Actually, most of the 80 and 90% is in English, and also lots of contributors from the English-based countries and also India. So we focus on the English contents right now, but actually to address some other foreign countries, actually we definitely see there's some technical challenges and barriers, but that's more likely we reserve it to the next phase. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Time for Archive.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Zegami.
The clicker? Cool. Hi everyone, my name's Samuel Conway. I'm CEO and co-founder of Zegami, a software company that's focused on making player data accessible and understandable to everyone, from the analyst to the club to the scout to the fan. We put the player back into the data to give a truly 360-degree view of the information attached to them. So how are we different? Maybe we should first start off to talk about our background. We're actually an Oxford University company that spun out in February last year, 2016, with technology designed to help provide insights for researchers with large image collections. A few months ago, we got a call from the Pittsburgh Pirates who were saying they had a bit of an issue about how they aggregate their data around a player. How do they make sense of it? How do they put that into a simple and intuitive way? But you don't need to worry, we're still helping researchers cure cancer, so no concerns there. They came to us and they said, it's all well and good for traditional BI solutions to have a look at data, aggregate data, pull it all together, and make sense of it that way. But what about if you wanted to keep that point of truth? What about if you wanted to keep that information about a player? So we talked to them a little bit more about this, and it turns out that the solution that we've got fits in really, really well with what they're trying to achieve. Because everyone's suffering from a data overload. So how about we run you through this? This is a bit of an example. We're all familiar with an Excel spreadsheet. Everyone's used one of those before. How do you get insight out of that? You've got to be trained up. You've got to understand how it works. And it's really, really difficult to get information out of that pretty much straight away. If it's not line by line or creating a pivot table, you've got to wait for that to load. But what about if we could add images to that? So this is an EPL collection. And what about if we could zoom into any piece of information that's instantly available? Obviously, we've zoomed into this player here. We can go to the next player. And we can start to navigate this in an intuitive way. On the right-hand side, we've got all the metadata about that player. But we can also search. So let's type in Manchester. Now, this is going to bring back Manchester City and Manchester United. So put that in the graph view. See, all of a sudden, you're starting to be able to play with this information and try and make some meaning out of it. Let's choose 4 more teams. Now, here, we might want to look at the data and say, what was the leading goal kicker for those 4 teams? We can see on the right here, we've got Carlos from Chelsea. From there, maybe we could then go, okay, what about scores with your left foot? Or maybe your right foot? And you can start to see the data's moving around, and it gives intuitive, simple responses. And then we've looked at total goals, and we've taken the filter off to look at every team. But we can get a bit smarter than that. So that started with just an image. But what about if we made that image a data source itself? So what about if we turned it into what we call a ZEG? Now we've actually coloured the tiles with respect to batting average. And you'll notice there's a distribution between that. And we've just taken this from the Major League Baseball website. So it's fairly simple data everyone has access to. So we put it into a graph view by batting average. Maybe we'll then filter it down to a team. Now here the Red Sox are pretty popular around here, so let's have a look at those guys. Now you notice that the ZEG again has changed. It's providing more information because we can start to consume more information. But if we actually drill into a player, you start to see that more information again is being displayed. But this is what's really interesting, is we can start to also link this to external data. So it might be the player page, it could be their Twitter feed. So think about this at draft time when you've got to make quick, instant decisions about who you might want to draft because you've missed out on a player. So let's play with the data. Okay, let's put it into a graph view by, I don't know, maybe batting average. Okay, so you can start to see that distribution again. But what about if we then start to play with the data and look at maybe at-bats? And we can start to move around. We want everyone who's had over 300 at-bats. We might want to then look at, say, a scatter plot by RBIs versus home runs. You can start to see we've filtered that down again. So once again, we're changing the way we look at this data. And then we might want to look at position. So whereabouts did these guys play on the field? Now think about what we've just done. We've taken an Excel spreadsheet, we've played with data, we've come with some results, and we've looked at what we can achieve. Which would you prefer? The cool part about it is that we see the US here as a massive market for what we do, and we've generated lots of interest. We've sold this to the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're currently in negotiation with 10 other teams, and we've only been really pitching the software for the last 2 weeks. But all the clubs and all the colleges and high schools are also potential clients for the same product. How are we selling it? At the moment, we've got annual license revenue for the clubs, but the technology is platform technology, so it can be further extended on from that. Maybe we'll white label it, or we'll do a B2C consumer application where we can sell advertising in it. Come on, there we go. But sports is just one market that we're involved in. It is platform technology. We started in the medical space, and we've actually sold to all of these industries. But we're passionate about sports, so that's where we started. This is our team. We're all experienced tech entrepreneurs, so why not try it? Everything I showed you today is available on our website. You can sign up, feed it in some data, and have a play yourself.
Thank you for demoing the product. That's so helpful.
And that was all in real time too. It wasn't as if we sped that up to make it all work like that.
So it's interesting, as you were going through it, I was thinking there's so many other opportunities to use that type of technology. I guess, as you license it out as a SaaS platform, is the idea that you would populate the data or provide the platform and the licensee would fill in the data?
So all we do is provide the platform. So it's set up so that it's basically a front end and a back end, and the back end enables you just to build collections. So at the moment, you can throw an Excel spreadsheet to it or a CSV file, attach some images, and you're up and running. It builds all the filters and everything dynamically themselves. The other cool part about it is that the organisation that's got the software can build on it. So if they want other views, if they want to look at the data in other ways, if they want to feed other data sources in, they can. Now, the really cool part is that we can also add in, say, machine learning, AI, image recognition, to enhance the data set as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with Tiffany that this feels like it is far more extensive than any single vertical.
Yeah, completely.
But when you approach businesses for partnership and for licensing, who's your primary customer there?
Interesting question. So we've had I guess a beta version of the product for the last year. We obviously were founded in 2016. I've raised £2.8 million in the UK. We have received 140 inquiries through our website in the last 12 months, of which we've sold, I think it's about 23 products to various organisations, obviously sport being one of them. We've sold it for HR, we've got some OEM customers. So it's really quite diverse in the customers that have bought the product so far. We see sport as something that people are passionate about, and we see it a way of engaging with clubs, leagues, and fans to get I guess, the methodology about the product out there and people using it. Because what normally happens is that people use it, people play with it, and then they go, oh, wait a minute, could I use it for this? Or could I use it for this? And the great part about where we're at now is you can.
Thank you. In terms of the back end and the integration, I have two questions. The first is, can you integrate video into it? It will take video?
Yes. So the ZEG that I showed you is what we call a dynamic tile. So that dynamic tile has the ability to basically display anything. It could be a video, it could be a dashboard, it could be anything that you really want it to be. It could be a tile that's made out of the data that's contained within the Excel spreadsheet as we've got it set up at the moment. And that's where it gets really exciting, where maybe we can run some machine learning algorithms over a video, for example. Pick out, in a database of 22,000 videos, we can pick out the 50 videos that have got exactly the format, exactly the images that you want within those videos.
Okay, thank you. And then the second part of the question is, in terms of the integration on the back end, I know you just went over this, but when you have a deal, say with, you said the Pirates, and so if they want to integrate information from Baseball Reference and from 10 different sources of baseball stats,
yep.
How does that integrate with the back end?
So we've got a Python back end, so we've got APIs that we can actually feed into the Python back end, so we can do an integration piece to feed the data into it. So.
Okay, and that's part of the setup fee? Okay, with each customer? Okay, yep. Thank you.
If required, if they don't have that skill set themselves. So what we're finding is a lot of the larger organisations actually have that skill set, and they say, just give us the product, please, and we'll do the rest ourselves. Cool.
Thank you, Zagami. Thank you, everyone, for presenting. We will now take a few minutes for our panel of judges to deliberate.